I got a wild story for y'all. It's quite sad. Hopefully it doesn't happen to anyone out there that's watching this video. If you don't already know, my business model, or Cross Properties business model, is extremely straightforward. We purchase homes that aren't in the best shape, fix them up, and sell them for a profit. We find the homes that we purchase through all different ways. In this instance, we just got a referral from a friend about some folks who had lost a loved one, and they were going to be reaching out to us about selling us the house that they inherited. So I go out and check on the house and meet with the folks. Super great people. The house was in iffy condition for sure, but it wasn't that bad. So I was super excited about the chance to purchase it, and they were super excited to sell it. After looking at the house, I come back to the office, crunch some numbers, throw together a contract, talk about it with Dad, send it over to them, talk to them on the phone. They're good to go with the price. We're good to go on the house. So contract signed off. Everything's looking good on the front end. We're getting another house, and they're getting money. If you've bought houses before, you know that once a contract's signed, then the next step is really a title search. So we send the contract over to our title search or a closing attorney, and that is to basically ensure us that we're purchasing the home from the people that actually own the home. This is where things get very unfortunate. I get a call from our title agency letting us know that the people selling us the home don't actually own the home. The first thought in my head is that this is just some kind of elaborate scam that I've fallen into, and that these people do this all the time, but it turned out that wasn't the case at all. These poor people were about to learn that they had a very unfortunate clerical error happen years and years ago that now means they don't own the house or have a right to the house at all. When you're buying or selling a piece of property, you got to sign a million different documents at the closing table, but to me the only one that actually matters is the deed. That's the actual legal piece of paperwork that transfers the ownership of a piece of property from one person to the next, or one entity to the next. For it to be legit, it has to describe the legal name of the property completely without any mistakes, and has to have the names of the seller and the names of the buyer, and they all have to sign off on it. Then it has to be recorded at the courthouse correctly as well. So there's multiple steps that goes into making sure this piece of property goes from one owner to the next. The main one is that the deed is correct and signed off on. In the story I'm talking about, in this situation, the deed was written completely incorrectly many decades ago, meaning that when the people I'm talking to, their loved one who they thought they inherited the house from, when they purchased that property, they didn't actually purchase anything at all because the deed was written incorrectly. So now here we are many years later, and this is getting found out. After hearing this and knowing that, these sellers are going to be upset about this situation, which I would be too if I thought I inherited a piece of property only to find out that my loved one who passed it down to me didn't ever actually own it, I'd be extremely upset. But I thought, well, simple fix. The person who sold the person who passed away this land, if they can just clear this up, and a new deed be drafted and say, yes, I sold them this piece of property. Looks like this deed was written incorrectly. We can get this all resolved. No harm, no foul, and everybody keep it moving. Unfortunately, that guy was dead. The other thing that could get this situation resolved would be if, when the person who passed away bought title insurance when they purchased the house years and years ago. Insurance on your title essentially means that you are insuring the fact that you're buying this from someone who can sell it to you, and that it is your house, and no one's going to show up later down the road and say, hey, no, this is actually my house, I have a right to it. I'm pretty sure most title insurance would cover a error in the deed wording. But I'm not positive, and I'm not an expert on title insurance, so maybe someone else should answer that question. But we always buy it. We've never had to use it. So there we are with talking to these sellers. Of course, we feel terrible for them. The people who work at the title insurance company or the attorney feel awful for them as well. All right, what are the next steps? What can we do? Well, it turns out the guy who owned the property previously, or actually still owned the property, who had passed away, had a will, and he had left all his real estate and other assets to a family member of his. So, essentially, there's someone running around out there who owns this particular piece of property that doesn't know anything about it, obviously, who could probably get this whole thing resolved. As far as it getting resolved, I don't know the status of that. I do know this, that when we buy a house and see a copy of the deed from the closing office before we go sign it, I look at it, read it, and then compare it with the county or city records and make sure that that description and that parcel ID line up exactly correct, because if they don't, you're gonna have major problems going down the line. When I do figure out what happens, I'll try to let you guys know. If you have any comments or questions about this or know anything more about these situations than I do, feel free to leave them in the comments. As always, thank y'all for watching. In the meantime, we'll continue buying houses, fixing them up, and selling them.